All right, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to a very exciting 2 hours that we have planned for you on this very important session on data-driven circular financing in cities, with special focus on municipal solid waste management. As you know, municipal solid waste management and sanitation has garnered a lot of attention over the past 4 or 5 years, especially given the focus and the priority set by the Honorable Prime Minister of India that has been taken up by the Swachh Bharat Mission and several initiatives at the ministry. Through our work and through our engagement at the ministry and various partners, we still observe that while the sector is extremely important towards achieving SDGs, there are still significant gaps which we want to highlight and address through this panel discussion. Specifically, one area that we want to spotlight today is on the data aspects of it. So while cities generate a lot of plastic waste, solid waste, the current methods are based on estimates. So we still do not know what is the exact quantum of waste that the cities are generating. And secondly, the methodology that the cities apply to understanding and inventorizing these waste managements are also not uniform. So these are some of the challenges around data, and evidence, which form the backbone of assessments and developing policies that we want to articulate and to demonstrate, how some tools and techniques can be applied. So we have a very prolific panel here that will speak about their expertise from the perspectives of application of a Waste-Wise Cities tool that UN Habitat has developed, and they have applied it globally and also currently in 2 cities in India to pilot it. That would support the municipal corporations in undertaking a comprehensive diagnostics that would help in scientific and evidence-based development of projects and investments. And furthermore, it will also help cities in understanding the SDG indicator 11.6.1, and then quantify it. So without further ado, I look forward to the discussions today and hope that at the end of the session today, we will have a good understanding or some contours of a roadmap that will help us in developing a circular financing for the municipal solid waste management sectors that would lead to carbon-free and carbon neutral cities. That is the agenda for also for the World Habitat Day this year. So I welcome all of you, and I welcome all the esteemed delegates and panelists who have very kindly given us their time this afternoon. Before we begin, I would like the participants who have joined us to the call to take a short poll to understand which sector that you represent. So please, we'll spend 30 seconds to do this. All right, so I have so we see we have a pretty diverse set of sectors that are represented here today, from the non-governmental organizations taking the lead, INGOs, also private sector, and from the local and national governments. So I think this would be interesting to get perspectives from our participants and to continue the discussions. To kickstart the discussion today, I welcome the Joint Secretary, Ms. Rupa Mishra, who has kindly offered to give the keynote address. Ms. Rupa Mishra is the Joint Secretary and Mission Director for the Swachh Bharat Mission under the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, Government of India, since August 2021. Previously, she was the Director of the National Jal Jeevan Mission, Department of Drinking Water and Sanitation at the Ministry of Jal Shakti, Government of India. She is a 2004 batch IAS officer of Odisha cadre, and she has been the Mission Director for National Health Mission, Swachh Bharat Mission Grameen, and Rural Drinking Water in the state of Odisha. So welcome, Ms. Rupa Mishra, and over to you. Looking forward to your address.
Thank you very much, Pamela. Namaskar, and very warm greetings from the team of Swachh Bharat Mission Urban to the entire team of UN Habitat India, the expert panelists who are present today, the other UN agencies, the other organizations who we just saw being represented through the rapid poll that Parul just administered, the urban local bodies, invited guests, viewers, ladies and gentlemen. This is indeed this is a very special moment in various ways, which I will explain. But as we are present in this panel discussion, united through the digital platform, and having come out through one of the worst and most challenging times that we would have seen in the recent history that COVID-19 pandemic brought before mankind, I would simply salute the resilience and the dedication of each and every stakeholder in this amazing journey of Swachhata. As cities shut down, as transport shut down, as every service other than basic services shut down, our cities still woke up to clean surroundings. Cities were still clean. And that is precisely because the 15.5 lakh frontline workers across every urban local body stood together strong and resolute to have a wonderful morning every day for all of us. And this wouldn't have been possible without the support of every stakeholder of the Swachhata family. So my heartiest congratulations and compliments to each one of you for standing by us, for supporting us, and for partnering with us. Having said that, I would also think, I strongly consider this being a special moment because as I see, this is Urban October. And Urban October, this time the theme is Climate Crisis, Accelerating Urban Action for a Carbon-Free World. And I would say India has arrived very strongly in the Urban October of 2021. There couldn't have been a stronger arrival for India. And I do not say this without reason. As we were just about to step into October, on 27th of September this year, rolled out the 7th edition of the world's largest cleanliness survey, the Swachh Sarvekshan 2022. And I'm happy to share with viewers and participants that this is a very special edition. With this edition, the Urban Cleanliness Survey will be touching directly over 8 crore citizens in Indian cities. This would be by far but the largest citizen touchpoint surveys ever taken anywhere. And the theme, as all of you know, ladies and gentlemen, is Citizens First. Because this is Azadi at 75 and Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav is on, and all of us are together in this wonderful journey, this time the significant weightage of voice for the citizens' validation will go to senior citizens. Somebody who's 70 years old, 75 years old, 80 years old. How does this person see his or her city? the sanitation services, the basic facilities, and also to the youth and young adults, because their aspiration is important to capture so that we plan and design the way forward. So Azadi at 75 Swachh Sarvekshan 2022, ladies and gentlemen, was launched on 27th of September. Thereafter, the momentous event on 1st of October, just on the very first day of October, Honorable Prime Minister of India, Shri Narendra Modi, launched Swachh Bharat Mission Urban 2.0. And this is excellent news and exciting times for all of us who are there in Urban Swachhata family. And with that, the Honorable Prime Minister laid his vision for garbage-free cities, which I think is extremely timely and makes this moment and today's discussion even more relevant and special. While placing his vision, the Honorable Prime Minister emphasized on waste to wealth, Swachh Bharat being a key to balanced development. I think this is very, very important. Swachh Bharat being key to balanced development. And Swachhata not being an activity of one day, 1 week, one pakhwada, 1 year, or of some people. But Swachhata is something that is to be carried forward generation after generation as a practice, as a way of life. These were the very words that Honorable Prime Minister spelt out at the time of launch of 2.0, and also emphasizing on the 100% waste processing, which at the moment is about at 70%, having risen from less than 20% in 2014 to where we are right now. We need to go up to 100%. Also with that, he has highlighted and emphasized on material recovery facility in every city, remediation of legacy dump sites, green jobs, India being a great provider, a huge provider of green jobs, reuse, recycle, and recovery, and also initiatives like the National Automobile Scrapping Policy. So this gives the foundation, this clearly spells out the foundation on which the next 5 years of India's Swachhata journey in urban cities will be accordingly curated and taken forward by all of us together. And right after that, on 2nd of October was another special day. As all of you know, 2nd of October is observed as Swachhata Divas on Mahatma Gandhi's Jayanti. And this year, it was made more special. This year, an initiative was taken to felicitate, to recognize, and to say thank you to each and every sanitation worker or Safai Mitra in every city across the nation. And for 48 hours non-stop, our cities joined hands, the state governments joined hands, stakeholders came together. And I'm happy to share with you that in 48 hours, we have been able to present a Swachh Bharat Urban Scroll of Honor, amongst other things, to every sanitation worker across the nation, and the number being a staggering almost 9 lakhs, 0.9 million in just 48 hours. And it was a very small way of a grateful nation saying thank you to people who matter the most. And with that, we moved on to 5th, 6th, and 7th for Azadi at 75, Expo Cum Conference at Lucknow. This event was an event that envisaged the urban transformation. And when we are talking about urban transformation, sanitation has to be the face of the transformed cities. And there, the entire expo was inaugurated by the Honorable Prime Minister once again. And there also, he has emphasized on the waste to wealth and circular economy, the importance of technology, the innovations, the research, and the formalization of informal workers. So this is how India steps into the October of 2021. And I do not think there could have been more action, more vision, more excitement around it than what is already here in front of us. And now our work just possibly has been defined. And all of us together have to join hands to move ahead. And here on 8th, right after Lucknow event getting over yesterday, I'm here with you on this wonderful panel discussion. And I once again take the opportunity to thank UN Habitat India and the entire team for organizing this. Having said this, it would be nice if all of us reflect a little bit on the journey of Swachh Bharat 1.0 and the tremendous amount of hard work, effort, and activities that have gone in the past 7 years since 2014, because that is what will provide the learning, the gaps, and the road ahead for 2.0. So to place it in a perspective before all of you, I would request the host to please share a short video that we have of the journey for SBM 1.0. The audio, please. I don't think the audio is there.
दशकों पहले बापू ने एक सपना देखा था, स्वच्छ भारत का सपना। इस सपने को पूरा करने के लिए 15 अगस्त 2014 को देश के आदरणीय प्रधानमंत्री जी ने संकल्प लिया और दुनिया के अनूठे, साहसिक और सबसे बड़ी स्वच्छता के जन आंदोलन की शुरुआत की।
क्या हम तय करें कि हमारा गांव, हमारा शहर, हमारा गली, हमारा मोहल्ला, हमारी स्कूल, हमारे मंदिर, हमारे अस्पताल, सभी क्षेत्र गंदगी का नामो निशान नहीं रहने देंगे।
और इसी संकल्प के साथ स्वच्छ भारत मिशन के साथ शुरू हुआ खुले में शौच मुक्त भारत का अभियान। व्यक्तिगत, सामुदायिक, सार्वजनिक शौचालय बनाए गए। महिलाओं के लिए पिंक टॉयलेट्स, दिव्यांगों और ट्रांसजेंडर के लिए भी स्पेशल टॉयलेट्स के द्वारा उनकी सुरक्षा, सम्मान और गरिमा का ध्यान रखा। और इसी तरह कुछ ही सालों में सबके अथक प्रयासों से भारत ओपन डेफेकेशन फ्री बन गया। स्वच्छ सर्वेक्षण, जो कि दुनिया का सबसे बड़ा सफाई का सर्वेक्षण है, उसकी स्पर्धा की शुरुआत के साथ सबने स्वच्छता को अपनी जिम्मेदारी और अपनी आदत बनाई। आज इस बात की खुशी है कि हम सबके सहयोग से देश अपनी आजादी की 75वीं वर्षगांठ का अमृत महोत्सव मना रहा है। सफाई के इस महाअभियान को केंद्रीय और राज्य सरकार एवं शहरों ने कोऑपरेटिव और कॉम्पिटिटिव फेडरलिज्म की भावना से आगे बढ़ाया। आधुनिक मशीनों की मदद से फीकल स्लज और शहर के दूषित पानी का उपचार कर उसे पुनः उपयोग करने पर भी काम किया जाने लगा। सफाई मित्रों के प्रति सम्मान, गर्व और प्रोत्साहन केवल शाब्दिक न रहे, इसलिए प्रत्येक नगरीय निकायों द्वारा उन्हें ट्रेनिंग दी गई। उन्हें वेस्ट मैनेजर और एंटरप्रेन्योर बनाया गया। नगर निकायों द्वारा जागरूकता फैलाने से लोगों ने घर से ही कूड़े को अलग करना शुरू किया। सॉलिड वेस्ट मैनेजमेंट के जरिए कूड़े को 100% प्रोसेस करने का लक्ष्य रखा गया और उस लक्ष्य को प्राप्त करने के लिए सुनियोजित तरीके से कार्य भी किए जा रहे हैं। क्या नेता और क्या अभिनेता, सबने मिलकर काम किया। रिड्यूस, रीयूज और रिसाइकल को आम जन के नाम किया। कोरोना महामारी के समय में भी हमारे सफाई मित्रों ने अपनी जिम्मेदारियों से आगे बढ़कर दिन रात अपने शहरों की स्वच्छता का ध्यान रखा। स्वच्छता की इस सोच ने लोगों को नए नए इनोवेशन के साथ जोड़ा, जिससे अब हर कोई स्वच्छता की इस मुहिम से जुड़ गया। स्वच्छ भारत मिशन के ये 7 साल इतने आसान नहीं थे। ये सपना और ये सफर अभी खत्म नहीं हुआ है, बल्कि अब तो इस मशाल की लौ और भी तेज हो गई है। अभी तो स्वच्छ भारत मिशन को नई ऊंचाइयों पर ले जाना है, जहां हरे भरे उपवन और साफ हवा होगी। साफ सफाई का काम मशीनों से होगा और सफाई कर्मियों का जीवन सुरक्षित होगा। वेस्ट नहीं बल्कि रिसोर्स होगा। डिजिटल इनोवेशन बनेंगे स्वच्छता के प्रहरी, और ये तभी संभव होगा जब हम स्वयं भी समझेंगे और दूसरों को भी समझाएंगे कि स्वच्छता से ही समृद्धि है। स्वच्छता के ये 7 साल स्वच्छ भारत के स्वच्छ कल की नींव है, और सबके प्रयास से ये नींव आज जितनी मजबूत बन रही है, उस पर टिकने वाली भविष्य की दीवार भी उतनी ही मजबूत और खूबसूरत दिखेगी। स्वच्छता की ये मशाल अब और तेज प्रज्वलित होगी। साध लिया है लक्ष्य ये, अब और तेज प्रगति होगी।
Thank you very much for sharing the video. So these 7 years of inspiring journey of Swachh Bharat has resulted in something which is incredible and which gives us the advantage to move ahead to achieve the vision which the Honorable Prime Minister has spelled out for us of garbage-free cities, clean air, clean water, and clean services. Now, why do I say that we have this advantage? That is because our systems, our institutions, and our processes are in great amount of readiness post the 7-year journey. And for this, I would like to substantiate what I just said by emphasizing that today, while over 4,371 cities are ODF declared, and 3,306 cities are ODF plus, something very interesting is 950 cities are already ODF plus. And the feather on the cap being 9 cities have already moved ahead in the journey of being water plus. Now, all this is great foundation to move ahead, and move ahead not incrementally, but in a transformational manner. And waste capacity, as all of us know, has grown over 4 times, and we need to take that to 100%. Door-to-door collection is around 97%, and single-use plastic ban has been notified by more than 4,000 cities. And this, I consider, is tremendous amount of institutional readiness to move ahead to Swachh Bharat 2.0. And this entire journey would not have been possible without data-led governance and outcome-based planning. And when I say this, we must all appreciate that Swachh Bharat has operated in a pyramid where there has been Government of India, where there has been government of the state governments, where there have been the urban local bodies. And in the entire ecosystem, there have been multiple partners, be it our development partners, our NGOs, our technical institutions, our research and academia, by people. The entire ecosystem has been absolutely filled up with people who are committed and driven. And this journey was mostly paperless, mostly digital driven. And the entire funding and performance pattern is based on outcomes. And for this, you would appreciate a small thing that India is one of those countries today that has absolute standardization of data in the mission outcomes. And this by way of your ODF, ODF plus, ODF plus plus, water plus, Swachh Sarvekshan, garbage-free rating protocols. The assessment is standardized, neutral, and by third parties. And there is enormous amount of data today built over 7 years that would give us tremendous insights for policy, for implementation improvements, and for even for other research and academic activities. How we leverage it, this is something on which everybody's output is absolutely welcome. And not just that, the mission has also created a virtual network of cities, state governments, and communities where the dashboard summarizes the kind of waste management data that is there in each and every city of India. Every city's waste has a unique journey. Therefore, the kind of the waste management plan of every city has to be very unique. And there is clear identification of outliers also that help in timely correction to measure the performance against each indicator. How many of you would be aware today that you can just on your Google type the nearest public toilet? Every single, around 65,000 plus toilet blocks are already available on the Google app. So this is the level to which we have already gone in terms of standardizing and fixing the benchmarks of outcomes and performance for every city across the parameters. And as we move ahead, I would say that one of the best practice that we have would be Swachh Sarvekshan. And Swachh Sarvekshan is indeed an enabler for data-led monitoring and planning. Now, this is something which was introduced by MoHUA in 2016 on cleanliness parameters in 73 cities. And today it has moved ahead to over 4,000 cities, and it has become world's largest urban cleanliness survey. Now, there are 6 rounds of survey. 6 rounds of survey has given us experience of a very well-conceived framework of database management and planning tool, which has in fact become some kind of a best practice of a management tool to nudge performance indicators. And development partners and NGOs and our other organizations are welcome to actually study how this kind of a tool has been effectively used in improved governance of and improved outcomes of sanitation. In keeping with Honorable Prime Minister's vision of a digital India, the upcoming edition of Swachh Sarvekshan will be ushering in few other improved technological interventions. And I'm also happy to share that the Swachhata App 2.0, which has been launched on 27th of September, is a platform that is already connected to over 2 crores Indians. And we are looking at increasing and touching about 5 crores very soon. I would actually encourage everyone to have a look at that app, utilize it, and also give us feedback of how it can be made more 360 degrees. Now, as we move towards 2.0, our targets are very clearly defined. Number 1, we have to move towards 100% source segregation. Number 2, material recovery facilities to be built up in every city. Number 3, we have to move towards a phased complete elimination and reduction of the single-use plastic. 4th, the legacy dump sites need to be remediated in a phased manner and converted into green zones. 5th, all the fecal sludge and septage to be safely contained, collected, transported, and treated across all cities. And next, systems and processes to be built up during the mission period to ensure that no untreated water, wastewater, pollutes our rivers. And very importantly, at least 20% of the wastewater is reused. And while moving ahead on this particular journey, I'm happy to share that every single urban local body has signed a memorandum of understanding along with the state governments and the government of India on the day of the launch of the mission, which is 1st of October, to move towards A, garbage-free cities, and B, water-secure cities. Now, coming to this entire concept, there's a clear time where we are moving from a linearity to a circularity. And this particular circularity brings us to the enormous size and scale of India with its own unique challenges. In India, the municipal solid waste tentatively has a potential to generate approximately 25 billion in revenue annually, along with employment for 28 million person days during construction and O&M. It is also estimated that the circular economy approach can help in reducing the greenhouse gas emissions by over 41 metric tons from municipal solid waste in 2030. And in liquid waste, it is expected that the revenues can accrue to the tune of approximately 100 billion annually from the liquid waste. So this is the kind of scale, this is the kind of opportunities, this is the kind of potential. And this also brings with it the very dimension of unique complexities as we move ahead to achieve these goals within the mission period. And this will never be possible unless there is a joint effort by all stakeholders across the sectors, united for the SDGs. And as all of you would appreciate, it is the goal 12 of responsible consumption and production, which is essential for the success of all SDGs. By linking the SDG 12 targets with the other goals, SDG 12 would certainly remain the most integrated and integrating goal of all the 2030 agenda of sustainable development. And in line with the circular economy, the SDG 12 would focus on environmentally sound management of all waste, reduce waste generated, and halve the per capita global food waste at retail and consumer level. And in India, the policies and business practices have already paved the way for closing the materials and energy loop. And India's environmental policies clearly serve as an umbrella for many specific waste management rules, lays down principles of waste management, and makes prevention of final disposal a priority. And this gives enormous opportunities for companies to increasingly contribute to the transition by developing competencies in circular design to implement product reuse and recycling and serve as trend setters of innovative circular economy business models. India is certainly committed, absolutely committed to the idea of sustainable development and inclusive growth. And the journey so far proves that. Now in the 75th year of independence, India is ready to embark on its journey from an ODF India to a garbage-free India. And we have already set the foundation for the next phase of Swachh Bharat Mission 2.0. And as we move ahead for clean air, clean water, and clean surfaces, I seek and welcome all of you to join us for a wonderful, incredible journey to take India to the next phase of the garbage-free cities vision. Wishing you all the best and thanking you very much. Let's come together and work together towards achieving the vision of garbage-free cities. Thank you, all the best.
Thank you so much for your remarks, Ms. Mishra. You have captured the whole essence that's driving this session today, and actually the whole theme for Urban October. India certainly is a beacon for the South Asia region, and also we would welcome efforts to promote South-South cooperation to showcase the experience and the learnings from the SBM mission over the past almost 7 to 8 years now. So thank you so much. A lot of food for thought for us to continue the discussion as we move forward, and for setting such a clear vision for a garbage-free and water-secure cities. I think those are extremely crucial elements in keeping in keeping in mind the challenging times that we are experiencing globally. So thank you, and thank you also for your time today. So with that, with those inspiring words, before we launch into our our panel discussions, I would request our participants and the attendees to take 2 short polls. Jogesh, if you could display the polls. The first is: are you aware about circular financing? All right. So what we hear from our participants today is that many of you have just heard about it, and a lot of you also have an understanding about it. So we hope that that through this session we are able to collectively get more insights into this theme. Can we open the second poll? And the question here is, does waste management all right, so can we start the second question? Yes, so does waste management system in your city reflect circular economy approaches? If you can take 30 seconds to get some insights. All right, so we can close the poll now. We have almost 67 large, almost 2/3 of the attendees today have disclosed that not fully, but the city is upscaling the circular economy financing part through initiating dialogues and action plans, and about a third who have responded that that there is no awareness about circular economy approaches in their cities anymore. So let's move ahead with the panel discussion, and we will hear from our panelists their direct experience in different aspects of circular financing, from the perspectives of donors, from the perspectives of officials, city officials, government officials who have been implementing these approaches in their cities, and also some technical experts. Each panelist would have about 15 minutes, so I request to please stay within that time. So the first panelist we have is Ms. Francesca Calesisi. Francesca is an associate officer of the solid waste management team at the Urban Basic Services section of the United Nations Human Settlements Program, based out of the headquarters in Nairobi, Kenya. She has been working with UN Habitat's solid waste management team since December of 2018. Before joining UN Habitat, Francesca has worked in the field of sustainable development and natural resource management in Ethiopia and Zambia. So, Francesca, over to you.
And good afternoon, everyone. I hope you can hear me. Thank you for inviting me, and also congratulations to the India country office and team to organizing this event. If it's okay, I'm gonna start by sharing my screen so I can take you through the presentation that I prepared for you about how data can support decision-making process in the field of the solid waste management. And I hope you are able to see the screen and the presentation. So as we all know, solid waste management is a global challenge that is affecting every country. And we know at the moment that around 2 billion people globally do not have an access of waste collection services. We also know that 3 billion people do not have an access to controlled waste disposal facilities. And at the moment, the greenhouse gases emission from solid waste management, it's accounted for around 5% of the global greenhouse gases emission. And under the business as usual scenario, we are likely that this proportion will reach up to 10% by 2025. Most of this is caused by methane emissions that are due to the decomposition of organic waste in open spaces, such as open dump sites like the one you can see in this picture. And the mismanaged municipal solid waste management then is also leading to another major threat for our ecosystems and our life, which is plastic pollution. At the moment, we know that around 8 million tons of plastic every year find their way into the world's ocean. And by continuing like this, it's more likely than by 2030, we are gonna have more pieces of plastics in the oceans than fish. which I think is quite alarming information. So UN Habitat, to address this global solid waste crisis, launched in 2018 a program called the Waste Wise Cities, which has a global focus and with a call for action to cities to put solid waste management as a priority in their agenda, and working together with us to act upon this challenge. At the moment, we have around 200 member cities globally, and more than 40 affiliates. Affiliates are organizations, private sectors, that in educational institutions who have a stake in the solid waste management. And I take this opportunity to invite other cities and entities to join our program. The Waste Wise Cities program has four main key action area. Number one is knowledge and good practice sharing. Well, here we try to share experiences and lessons learned from other cities for other cities to learn. And we publish bi-monthly newsletters, and we organize webinars on like thematic webinars or like geographical webinars, maybe for like certain region or certain countries. Then we have the second key action area is waste data and monitoring, where basically we developed the Waste Wise Cities tool, which is an assessment and monitoring methodology based on the SDG indicator 1161. And I will dig a bit more into this one later. Then the third pillar is advocacy and education. So we try to create awareness and sensitize citizens, private sector, and different stakeholders on the issues around the solid waste management and the possible solutions. And we also try to work with schools and to share good practices for that schools have put in place to be more environmentally friendly, and to support the awareness for children and youth. Finally, we support cities to develop project proposals, bankable project proposals, and mobilize funds for the establishment of improved waste management systems. Okay, as I mentioned, the Waste Wise Cities tool is based on the SDG indicator 1161, but it also helps in assessing other waste SDG, such as those related to goal 12 in relation to national recycling rate and food loss index, and also to other SDG like related to goal 14 in relation to life below water. So here this a bit more in details. So our Waste Wise Cities tool is based on the indicator 1161, which is the proportion of municipal solid waste collected and managed in control facility out of the total waste generated by a city. And by measuring this link, is also possible to measure other indicators, such as the food loss index and the national recycling rate. So why we felt it was necessary to develop this tool? Well, number one, it's because globally there is a lack of a standard methodology used to assess the city's city waste management system performance, and also generally to collect solid waste data. And this challenge, this lack of like standard methodology and lack of data is especially true and valid for emerging countries, where often the lack of data can also lead to inappropriate interventions as well as investments. We know that like what gets measured gets also managed. And through the Waste-Wise Cities tool, we are able to support cities to measure and to assess the waste generated, collected, and recovered by a city. And we also know that the data is key for cities to, number one, develop strategic plans for the short, medium, and long term, and also action plans that can fulfill the strategic plans. Data is also key to identify effective policy and infrastructure interventions, and also to allocate resources in an effective and efficient way to build the right kind of infrastructures that are hindering an effective circular economy. So what does the Waste-Wise Cities tool measure? So the Waste-Wise Cities tool allow us to assess the municipal solid waste management, the amount received by controlled recovery facility and by the uncontrolled recovery facility, because we can have a recycling facility that recover waste but is not environmentally friendly or is not controlled according to the criteria and ladder developed by the WACT. So for example, the recovery facility can recycle, but then, for example, it does not have fence, there is no personal protective equipment for the staff, there's no like wastewater treatment. So then this type of facility cannot be considered as fully controlled. So the Waste-Wise Cities tool is also able to tell us what gets managed in a controlled and environmentally friendly manner. Then the tool also tells us what is received by disposal facility, meaning sanitary landfills or dump sites. And also here we can distinguish between controlled and uncontrolled facility. So uncontrolled facility usually are open dump sites which lack fences, there's no compaction, maybe there's fires going on, there's no control of access. Instead, controlled disposal facilities are generally sanitary landfills. Finally, the tool also tells us what the amount of waste that does not get collected and so is remaining in the environment. The Waste-Wise Cities tool is made of 7 steps. We go from number 1, which is the preparation. So it's about the logistics, setting up the team, preparing the budget, involving the city, getting the authorization, getting the letters, selecting the areas to survey and the households. Step number 2 looks at the households, municipal solid waste generation and composition. So how much waste is generated by citizens and which type of waste. Step number 3 looks at the generation of non-household waste, meaning schools, restaurants, bars, hotels, streets. Step number 4 instead assess the amount of waste received by recovery facility and also assess their level of control of these recovery facilities. Step 5 assess the amount of waste received by disposal facilities and their level of control. Step number 6 looks at the waste composition at the disposal facilities to validate the composition data obtained at the household level. And finally, step number 7 allows to create linkages with other important waste SDGs, such as the food waste, recycling rates, and also it helps us assess and estimate plastic leakage, the plastic leakage that the solid waste management system of a city has, and also greenhouse gas emissions and air pollution. This through also the use of other tools such the suite and the waste flow diagram of GISM. So this here, so WACT was launched in February now this year, and we are rolling it out. By the end of the year, we are aiming to apply it in 50 cities. So far, we were able to apply it this year only in some African cities, for example, through UNEP support through the Global Partnership on Marine Litter. We applied it in Lagos, Nigeria, Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, Karachi, Pakistan, Khulna, Bangladesh. And also through the COPSEA project supported by UNEP, also in Kep, Cambodia, and also Sihanoukville in Cambodia as well. Through the support of the African Clean Cities Platform, another program that UN Habitat is managing, but as a focus on the African continent. And this program is supported by the Ministry of Environment, Japan. The WACT was applied in African cities such as Sousse in Tunisia, Bukavu in DRC, Harare, Zimbabwe, and Cape Coast, Ghana. Also, so far has been applied also in cities in the Philippines, Legazpi, Ormoc, Cagayan de Oro, Calapan, through the Healthy Ocean and Clean Cities Initiative, also supported by the government of Japan. And in collaboration with the WWF, the World Wide Fund for Nature, we are now implementing, well, we just finished implementing the tool, the WACT, in 2 cities in Indonesia, Bogor and Depok, and Hue in Vietnam. Finally, thanks to the support of the Alliance to End Plastic Waste, we were able to implement the WACT in Addis Ababa and Bahir Dar in Ethiopia and Mangalore in India. So how does the WACT help cities? Why should a city apply it? So number 1, it creates a baseline. It allows to take a picture of the, let's say, the performance, how the city solid waste management system is performing, meaning how much waste is collected, how much waste is treated in control facilities, and to understand the total waste generation and composition. And this is very key then when it's time to decide which type of infrastructures are needed. Is your city generating 50% of organic waste? Then maybe we need to invest in infrastructure that allow us to recover organic waste. Number 2, the WACT allows to identify the municipal solid waste recovery chain and the actors that we will need to engage to plan for a circular economy strategic plan. Then it also allows to establish better waste and resource management strategies that can create business and livelihood opportunities, especially for the informal sector. And also can provide data for large solid waste infrastructure investment cases to municipal corporation and other private stakeholders. Finally, it can also help to develop project proposals and mobilize funds to generate an impact on the ground. So this is an example of the WACT application in Nairobi, Kenya. So from the WACT, we found out that in Nairobi, we have around 3,000 tons of waste daily generated. And 1/3 is coming from non-households premises, and 2/3 is from the households. Out of this total waste generated, only 65% is regularly collected. So we have around 1,000 tons of waste every day left abandoned in the environment. And we know that only like less than 500 tons are recovered and managed in the control facility. So
Francesca, I'm sorry to interrupt, but could you take about a couple of minutes to wrap up so that we
I'm about to wrap up.
All right, thanks.
So and then we also know that Nairobi is leaking about 4.5 kilos per person per year of plastic into water bodies only. So this is the waste flow diagram telling us the fate of the plastic waste. And in Nairobi, after the WACT application, we organized the stakeholder workshop with the formal and informal actors. And this led to the development of the Nairobi City County Sustainable Management Action Plan 2020-2022, which is actually currently under development. So the WACT provided the base in terms of like data, information, actors to develop a plan for moving the solid waste management system of the city, and also to set sustainable and feasible goals to be reached in the short term. The WACT also, beside supporting the monitoring and the planning for improved solid waste management system at city level, can also support the development of a regional and national monitoring system for the governments to utilize for planning interventions and national and regional city level to allocate resources and better budget the resources, and also to monitor the progress towards the national goal, the fulfillment of the different policy and regulations. Finally, all the data that we are now collecting from the Waste Cities tool application can be found available on our partner website, which is here. Maybe I can also post it in the chat. And my presentation is finished. Thank you very much. I'm going to share the links of our to our Waste Cities tool if anyone is interested in joining or getting more information. Thank you very much. Bye for now.
Yeah, thank you so much, Francesca. I mean, a very enlightening, presentation demonstrating the application of the tool and how it addresses the key concerns of data around and in the waste sector for policy practice. So I now move to our second panelist, Ms. Isha Sar from the Alliance to End Plastic Waste. Isha is a sustainability professional with over 15 years of experience in shaping, convening, and implementing sustainability solutions in business. She is currently seconded to the Alliance to End Plastic Waste, a CEO-led global initiative of 70+ companies along the plastic value chain. At the Alliance, she serves as the Chief Advisor for South Asia. And looking forward to your presentation, Isha. Over to you.
Thanks, Parul, and thank you for the opportunity today. Very pertinent topic and very closely aligned with what we're trying to do at the Alliance as well. Let me just share my screen. minimize this. Are the slides visible?
Yes,
Are
they
the
are.
slides visible? Yeah, all right. So yeah, I mean, at the Alliance, we are quite a young organization, and we were formed in 2019 to basically build a global coalition, bringing together industry leaders from across the plastics value chain, work with economic development organizations, partners on the ground, organizations such as UN Habitat, for example, and very, very local organizations who are actually in depth, who are actually working in depth into the topic to build a portfolio of projects and rally action to implement solutions across 4 pillars. So we work in the area of infrastructure, innovation, cleanup, and education and engagement. And what we have achieved so far in the very short time that we've been in existence is more than 30 projects launched across the world. We work in high leakage geographies mostly, but we also have some projects which are relevant for more developed geographies. And we see ourselves as a do tank. So we convene this network to actually implement these local solutions on the ground. And our membership has now expanded from 27 when we started to over 65 member companies, plus a whole host of partner organizations with whom we work very closely. And we have to date raised about $1.1 billion for investing into these opportunities. But I think the most important point here is that we realized very early on that this is just a drop in the ocean, and we need to work very closely with organizations across the globe to catalyze even more investment. And the way for us to do that is to de-risk solutions, which could then, demonstrate the bankability and the investability of these projects to more traditional financial institutions, development banks, foundations, et cetera, et cetera. If I move to the next slide, this just shows you the membership. We are well represented across the plastics value chain. Our members are not only the resin producers, we have brands, we have waste management companies, converters, recyclers, and also a number of organizations who are doing stakeholder engagement across the globe on this very important topic. How we invest, and this is very closely linked to the whole concept around financing of waste management in high leakage geographies. We work on 5 investment themes. These investment themes look at addressing different areas of this challenge. So we work in the area of engaging with cities, where we look at the real starting point, locations which currently have no collection systems, sortation systems, or are underserved by systems that exist. So we work closely with cities and local stakeholders to implement projects on these topics. We are also looking at societal behavior, because we think that sort of underpins all of what we do across the different themes. Advanced recovery and recycling is another area of interest. Here we're talking about things like chemical recycling, but also advanced sorting technologies in terms of AI-enabled technologies, etc. The next one is creating value for recyclates. This is essentially all about how do you valorize the waste, and drawing from what Ms. Mishra mentioned during her address. This is something which is very important to look at waste as a resource, and we are constantly looking at new and innovative business models, technologies which can actually help get the highest value out of the waste and convert it into a truly monetized resource. Last but not the least, we are also active in the area of design for circularity, where we are looking at different things like reuse models. We are looking at how do you simplify packaging, for example, to allow for better recyclability and different products and materials in that space. So what we've recognized in our journey is that it's very important that whatever we do, firstly, it needs to be sustainable. By sustainable, we mean that there has to be very strong business models behind what we do, because the world is littered with projects, where once the funding runs out, the project is basically a shell and it doesn't continue thereafter. So our strong focus as we design, develop, and build these projects is to look at the entire business model, the business plan, whether once the project is set up, invested into, stabilized, it can actually generate the revenues that it needs to sustain itself in the long run. So we are not talking about huge profits here, but we are talking about revenue generation, which can help sustain the project on its own 2 feet after the alliance funding ends. Scalability is also something that is very important for us, and I will talk a little more about what we mean by scalability in the next few minutes. Catalytic capital is a very important KPI for us, because we are very clear that our investments are looking at de-risking, scaling solutions to a certain level. But when we look at really large scale flagship projects and programs, then we need the de-risking to actually be used in leveraging additional financing, be it from the private sector, be it from development finance institutions, other foundations, etc. And last but not the least, our investments are always focused in driving solutions up the circularity hierarchy. We realize that it is not possible to be 100% circular right at the start. If we are talking about regions where there is no collection system in place, it is very difficult in such a region to talk about a solution like chemical recycling or advanced sorting. We first need to put the building blocks in place so that we can actually get that location onto the ladder and then move up the ladder. And this is basically our approach to doing that. We're looking at the entire pyramid and constantly working to move solutions up this hierarchy. And that being said, we recognize that in different parts of the world, depending on the maturity of the existing systems, different kinds of solutions apply at a certain moment in time. So for example, when we look at chemical recycling, a lot of that focus could be in the more developed parts of the world where there is existing collection, source segregation, sorting systems in place. And whereas in other geographies, targeting, the basic collection, sortation, processing, mechanical processing may make more sense. If you look at this slide, this is something which is very core to our investing strategy. And this is what we call our circularity gaps model. Essentially, if we see this slide, you have these different gaps that we see in the entire chain, which is sort of the roadblock for us to achieve full circularity when it comes to managing plastic waste. So you have what we call the design gap, where you're designing for recycling using recycled resin. You have the data gap, which was a very good example of what Francesca shared, that this is something that is really important because you can't measure what you are not, you can't, monitor, improve what you're not measuring. To this effect, we are also working on this global platform called PRISM, which is looking to collate data from around the world at different levels of granularity. And the work we're doing with UN Habitat is also very useful in this aspect. Then we're looking at the quantity gap, because there is a huge mismatch between what commitments companies are making across the globe in terms of using, PCR or post-consumer recycled material in their packaging, for example, versus what we are actually able to see the market providing today. Quality gap is again linked to this. So the PCR must be fit for use. When you're looking at food applications, for example, then you're talking about very high standards, taking care of contamination issues, etc. And last but not the least is the affordability gap. I mean, with the crude prices and the virgin plastic prices being what they are, and also the cost of collection, the cost of sortation, processing, etc. How do you make PCR more affordable, and how do you sort of deliver affordability at the right quality and the right quantity? And each of the investment themes that we follow for our investments are linked to one or more of these investment gaps, these circularity gaps, as you can see in the slide. So it has to do with designing for circularity. It has to do with increasing education and awareness. It has to do with increased and improved sorting facilities, collection facilities, improving the end markets, which is something we're trying to do in the creating value for recyclates piece, and also to demonstrate and scale advanced recycling the sector. And when we're talking about, you know, how we source and develop projects, how do we know what it is that we want to invest into, and what it is that moves the scale for us? We're looking at three things. We're looking at quantifiable impact, we're looking at solution building blocks, and we're looking at the positioning and the influence of these solutions, because we believe that if you can demonstrate something which is very visible, then it helps in the uptake of these solutions, and the replication potential and the replication possibilities are quicker in that sense. We are driven by our key metrics around the diversion of plastic waste from the environment, around the recycling of plastic waste from the environment. We are also under the solution blocks bucket looking at the new technologies, things that we can prove, de-risk and demonstrate a solution which can then subsequently be scaled by others. And we do it in two ways. We issue requests for proposals linked to our different themes, and have folks submit proposals to us. But talking about scalability, this is essentially generation 3 of our thinking around project development, which are our flagship projects concept. Here we are really looking to develop large scale projects, 50 kilotons per annum and above scale, for example, to demonstrate that this is possible to do at scale. When we say large scale flagship projects, we don't mean setting up a MRF of say 100 kilotons. What we mean is that the entire system comes together in a city, in a country, in a region to be able to provide that impact. And this is where a lot of our focus is going to be going forward. We are scoping some of these projects. Some are in very initial sort of design phases, and we hope that in the next couple of years, we will be able to launch some really powerful flagship projects in different parts of the world. We are moving steadily towards our first 1 million tons, and what you see here are our project locations on the global map. We also have predefined to some extent our proposed capital allocation, and not surprisingly, Asia Pacific region has the highest amount because this is where a large part of the problem and also the solutions exist. And what we are envisaging is that once our projects are running at full stream, what we say at steady state, the projects that we have approved and launched in 2020 to 2021 will deliver around 875 kilotons of diversion on a year-on-year basis. So with that, I don't know how much time I have left, but we've shared the slides. We are doing work in India as well, and in the annexure you will find a description of the different projects that we have launched in India. We are working in Haridwar and Rishikesh with GIZ. We have recently launched a project in Agra, working with Tara and the development alternatives, focusing on hotspot cleanup, processing, stakeholder engagement, education and awareness. We are also doing work in the area of societal behavior, looking at social business development, we are working similar to the UN Habitat program. We're also working with ICLEI to develop, the wealth of data from about 5 cities, 2 in India and 3 in Southeast Asia. And last but not the least, the Waste-Wise Cities work that we are doing with UN Habitat, which Francesca has already spoken about. So with that, I will stop sharing at the moment, and happy to take any questions that we get from the audience, and look forward to working collaboratively with the Swachh Bharat mission and with the different agencies in India and South Asia to actually make our vision successful, because we need all hands on deck, really. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Isha. Your presentation was very spot on in understanding what is it that that the donors are looking for in terms of the good project design and the types of outcome it can have on cities and our environment. And I really appreciate that that in all of this, the backdrop from the Alliance is also to show the outcome. It is very impact-oriented design framework for financing, which is what we need. So we'll save the questions towards the end of the session. I hope you can stay with us until then. So I'll move on to our next panelist, who is also a colleague, Karthik. He has been working with UN Habitat's Waste-Wise Cities program since October 2019. At present, he is supporting the India office very closely in implementing the Waste-Wise Cities tool interventions in the city of Mangalore. And he is a professional. Professionally, he has been working in the waste and sanitation space for over 5 years with experience in India and abroad. Karthik is a graduate from Technical University of Munich. So over to you, Karthik, and I request you to please highlight just the key findings from the city of Mangalore so that we can save some time for the Q&A towards the end.
Thanks, Parul, and hello everyone. So today I'll be sharing about our work in Mangalore city, in which we have done some inventarization of waste data for the city. And it was followed by identification of action areas and some circular investment proposals that we are working on. So this project was under Waste-Wise Cities program and funded by Langston Classic Waste, as our colleagues shared. And the major objective of this project was basically to strengthen the stakeholders' capacity, mapping the waste flow and stakeholder consultation, and developing the action plan and bankable project focusing on circular economy. Giving a little insight that how we went with the implementation of the tools. So firstly, we started with the local support from municipality and ground volunteers. A working team was established. Logistics on tool and equipment were cleared, and an intense background study was carried to identify the current status on waste management in the Mangalore city, and also to get the data points which we will be needing for the estimations when the work will be implemented. We surveyed around 90 households during the duration of 10 days. So first step was training the volunteers, where 20 volunteers were trained who helped us for applying the rule in the city. And then there was 10 days of intense work where the characterization study was carried for households and commercial units, then interviewing of commercial units, and the recovery facilities was done. And other than that, the landfill site was also visited, and the characterization study was carried there. There were certain COVID restrictions that we faced, and we came up with the local solutions that how to
Karthik, your voice is breaking in between. Can you come closer to the mic, please?
Sure, Jogesh. Is it fine now?
Yes, so far it's fine. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay. So yes, I was mentioning about 10 days of intense field work that we did in this April with some COVID restrictions. The first was like on the household and non-household waste generation, where daily the waste sample from 90 households was brought to one central unit, and the characterization study was done by our volunteers. All the waste was measured and characterized into around 12 categories, and the data was recorded. Secondly, we did a detailed waste flow mapping for all the stakeholders, and at each level, interviews and assessment was carried. So from the generation to the disposal and whatever the recovery flows are, that was like our approach towards it. For the recovery facilities, we reached out to around 30 facilities and we adopted the methodology of snowball research, where we had certain list of stakeholders who were aggregators or the scrap dealers, and we went and asked them questions about the competitors, from where they're getting the supplies. And that's how we did the whole diagnostic of the city to find out that, okay, how many are there as the main aggregators and how many are in the scrap dealing business. Also, lastly, the disposal facilities were visited, and which was the Pashnadi landfill site there. And the characterization study was carried there, and the interviews was done with the base speakers also on their behavior of recovery there and on the working condition, and the level of control for the disposal facility was also rated here. So this is what data we found in our background research, where Mangalore claimed that they generated around 337 tons per day of waste, and out of that 294 tons was going to the disposal site and 43 tons was recycled daily. So this was something what they were also reporting in the survey and using for the planning purpose. And after the diagnostic tool was applied, the WAP tool, what we found out that it's not 340 tons, but it's approximately 400 tons per day of waste what Mangalore city is generating. And the recycling capacity is much more. It's not 40 tons, but it's around 110 tons, which incorporates even the informal groups who are involved in recycling. Earlier, city was only measuring the recycling of their registered facilities, but this tool basically added on the informal areas also. Other than that, still a humongous amount of waste still reached the disposal facility. And earlier, where there was no discussion on the leakages or unmanaged waste, we found that 27 tons per day was the waste which was leaking daily or was uncollected there. In the results, if I go in more detail, we found out what is the waste characterization of the whole city, and there was significant increase in quantities of plastic that we found out in our assessment. Earlier in 2016 data, it was around 13%, but now it was around 17% of the plastic in the waste stream, which also owes to the COVID situation. The assessment was also giving us result in more detail, where we characterized the households in different categories of income, and we found out the waste generation patterns that were there. Comparatively, they were like high plastic waste generation in low income area and low food waste generation, and were the trends that we see on the slide here. Also, the recovery facility data, we found out that around 110 tons, which is recycled daily, or which is recovered actually daily. Out of that, plastic, PET and HDPE, which are the high value plastics, are the major streams which are being collected and are processed further in the recycling process. But for other type of plastic, like the low value plastics and the PVC and PEs, there are no such formal rules yet established in the city. In terms of plastic leakage, which was part of the assessment in the Mangalore city, we found out that there is around 3,800 tons of waste, plastic waste, which is retained on land annually, and around 2,700 tons of plastic waste is leaked every year in the ocean. Because it's a coastal city, the impacts are also high, and it brought the leakage equivalent to around 151 PET bottles per person per year, which would be around like 4.2 kgs. So a similar reference study in Mediterranean region brought that per capita plastic leakage is around 3.2 kg. And if we take that as a reference, the leakage from Mangalore city per capita for plastic waste is pretty high. So based on the assessment that we did, we carried a workshop in presence of Commissioner Mr. Akshay Sridhar of Mangalore and other 35 members representing different stakeholder groups from the city, which were NGOs, recyclers, association, bulk waste generator, and citizen groups. And in the discussion, we came up with the priority intervention areas in the city. The first one was the waste minimization, focusing on zero waste system. The second point was on the upgrading of the collection system. Third was focused to boost on the recycling infrastructure. Fourth, we fell down the improving the disposal side, and fifth, to bring the financing and circular investment in the picture. So basically, these were the 5 key points that came up in the discussion, which should be the intervention areas. And using them, basically, we developed an action plan for the Mangalore city. So this action plan translated into 14 targets, which focused on sustainable procurement, banning of single-use plastic, increasing the processing capacity by decentralized interventions, improving the tracking, and also developing the whole market for the recyclables, bringing the PPP and the EPR models here, and also the investment for the waste management upgradation. And these 14 targets further were translated, like further opened up in 33 activities, which for Mangalore City Corporation came under this 4 major areas, which was to work on guidelines and monitoring, improve the collaborations and partnerships, bring a multi-stakeholder approach, and improve waste processing and expand the improve the processing and the waste infrastructure. So out of from this action plan on all the assessment, we found out that low value plastic was one of a major issue that the city is facing, and the project proposal is being developed on the lines to bring more circularity in the flow of plastic waste. So what you see is the existing system where we see the majority of the low value plastic waste is just ending up in the dump site, and what we intend to do here is now to set up a parallel system with the existing system of the city, where with the improved segregation, the driveways could be brought at certain points by having multiple driveway centers across the city, and the waste then could be channelized to the aggregation center and further into upcycling of the low value plastics, where it could be processed into the products like pellets and chairs and things like that. So looking from the circular investment point of view, there are 4 key opportunities that we are looking for this proposal and action plan for the Mangalore city. The first one being the sustainable public procurement. The second is on the green entrepreneurship, where we are targeting to take more waste entrepreneurs in operations of these facilities. Other is to focus on the reduce, reuse, and recycle the waste hierarchy, and also bringing the investments from public sector and private sector to operationalize the project here. So the financing that we are looking in Mangalore city context, if I explain in the stakeholders perspective, from the government end, we are looking on maximizing on the revenue and the user fees from the waste collection system. Also accessing the grants and exemptions that they have, and also giving the subsidies to the waste entrepreneur who are ready to take up the business there, and extending the in-kind supports. From private sector, basically we're exploring on the public-private partnership, bonds and CSRs, and also extensively on extended producer responsibility in resonance with the national policy of India. From additional sources, I mentioned, we are looking at Swachh Bharat Mission funds also, which the states and the cities get from the national level, and from the international organizations, we've been looking over the funds which are on the green and climate financing models, and on grants and donations, and other than that, investments. So just to bring the whole loop of circular financing together, that for a project which is bringing out circularity, bringing in the finance to improve the overall situation. So that's all the whole project is about in the Mangalore city, where from data assessment, we developed the action plan and the intervention. We found out the problems and we developed the action plan. And from the action plan, now we are working on a proposal and looking at the circular financing model. Thank you.
Thank you, Karthik, for sharing the findings from this study. And I would urge everyone who is interested to please reach out to us or to follow us on our social media channels to keep up to date on the next steps of this project as well. So I'm very delighted to invite our next panelist, Dr. Godfrey Nyongesa-Neto. He is the a member of the County Executive Committee for Environment, Waste Management and Energy in the County Government of Mombasa since November 2017. Currently, he is also the County Executive for Health Services in an acting capacity. Before joining the county government, Dr. Neto was a lecturer and dean for the School of Humanities and Social Sciences at the Technical University of Mombasa. So, Dr. Neto, really looking forward to your experience and the case study of Mombasa. Over to you. Thank you. Dr. Neto, can you hear us? Can you hear me?
Thank you. I can hear you very well, Parul. I hope you can hear me now.
Yes. And we have your presentation on the screen as well.
Yeah, thank you. I want to take this early opportunity to thank the organizers of this webinar for inviting me to share my experiences in municipal solid waste management and to participate in, to benefit from this discussion on data-driven circular financing for cities. I represent the government that manages solid waste management in the city of Mombasa, which is a port city with a population of 1.2 million people, and that places it as the second largest city in Kenya after Nairobi. So my presentation is on capturing circular finance by implementing the Wastewise Cities tool, and I will pitch my case on what we have done in Mombasa. Just to make you aware that we implemented the Wastewise Cities tool in the second half of 2019. But before that, before we implemented the tool, yes, before we implemented the tool, I want to explain what the scenario was in this slide. That the data we had on the amount of waste we generate were basically estimates. And looking at the documents that we had at that time, our estimates were that we were 1,200 tons a day. But with the information we now have, this data was not consistent with the reality at the time. But I think these estimates were reinforced by the observed situation at that time that happened because of the poor collection infrastructure. And so we had quite a number of illegal dump sites, I would say. Our count towards the end of 2018 was that we had about 78 of illegal dump sites in the city of Mombasa. So I want to believe that the estimates were basically reinforced by this observation. And for the period preceding 2019, our focus therefore was on putting in place activities and actions to encourage investment in waste to energy, a model that we thought could be able to mop up the 1,200 tons per day. But we stand now, we feel that if we had gone through that kind of investment, it will have been a very, very costly investment, considering that now the data we have shows that our generation is far, far much below what was estimated at the time. After we had implemented the Wastewise Cities tool, these are the figures that we now realized we have in terms of municipal solid waste management, that our generation by the second phase of 2019 of municipal solid waste was actually below 1,000 tons per day. And our collection efficiency was about 46%. That means about 375 tons of waste will be taken to our official dump sites, which were 2 of them, and about 474 tons of waste generated daily was not formally managed and will find itself in undesignated places, which could be abandoned buildings and plots, and sometimes in the ocean, considering that we are a port city. And if you look at the way we manage in controlled facilities, particularly in recycling, our rate was very low at 5%. So looking at this waste flow, basically a linear in nature, focusing on collection, transportation, and disposal of the waste that we generate. Now, we had a discussion, of course, with the experts fronted to us by UN Habitat, and they pointed out 3 areas of intervention. One was that we needed to improve capacity to collect the waste so that it moves from 46% towards 100%. Now, 2 was that we strongly put in place measures to boost our resource recovery. And so the focus was to make sure that we develop material recovery facilities and encourage private companies to invest in recycling. And then finally, there was a weakness in our final disposal facilities. The tool gave us a scale of 1, meaning that we have no control at what happens at our final disposal. So the final disposals are not secure, they don't have a weight reach, the weight is banned, and those kind of stuff. So after that awakening, I would say that we had a serious discussion and discussions between ourselves and our stakeholders, and we came up with what we will say the desirable waste flow for the city of Mombasa. The areas of focus were awareness creation amongst particularly for the waste generators, so that they handle the waste responsibly, and for those ones who are in waste collection, so that they can realize that the waste they collect has some value that can be monetized and generate some income to them. But then for us to get value out of the waste, we realize that we need to develop procedures and infrastructure, improve our collection and transportation capacity, so that the waste that is collected at the source finds itself either in the designated disposal points or in areas where the waste can be recovered, retrieved, and turned into valuable products or items. The second biggest area of intervention, I would say, was that we invest a lot in infrastructure, particularly in infrastructure for material recovery facilities, in infrastructure for composting for the organic waste that we generate, and if possible, in infrastructure to get the resource-based fuels from one part of our waste stream. And then finally, there was supposed to make sure that we streamline operations at our final disposal site, so that we avoid the contamination into our environment, and also make sure that the waste that goes to the dump site is actually reduced, because much of it ought to have been diverted. So I see that after this realization and this discussion, what is now informing the county government of Mombasa in terms of allocating its resources, and what is now informing our stakeholders in terms of investment, is this what I would say the waste flow that we came up with. We have established a forum, I would say, informally it is at the moment, but we have a forum that has all important scholars with the municipal solid waste management. We have private entities who have managed to invest in recycling infrastructure. We have local and international NGOs that have an interest in helping us streamline this process. And of course, our own resources now that waste management has come into focus as one of the priority areas for investment. So what is it that we are doing now? A lot of support has come in terms of awareness creation, which was our key and the first component, I would say. And activities around this has been largely on cleanups, which becomes a platform for sending particular messages to the targeted population. We have targeted trainings and workshops, and institutions that have come in place to support this. I'm sorry to say this, but the political leaders have been very, very strong on supporting the cleanup activities, because I think they become a playground for dissemination of other political messages. But then we have WWF Kenya and Hand in Hand Eastern Africa that have also allocated resources to help us create awareness among the resource generators and also the waste managers that we have in the county. And then we also have put in place some measures towards separation of waste at source. And the major one has been the legislation. We have now put legislation in place to make sure that when we enforce it, separation at source will be mandatory. And of course, we have specific trainings that are going on now to focus on source separation of the waste. And we have institutions that have come in to support us on this. One is the Association of Manufacturers in Kenya under the umbrella of Kenya Association of Manufacturers. we have the Kenya Alliance of Residents Associations who will actually be affected if waste management was not streamlined. So they have put in some money to support us on legislation and specific trainings. With this data that we have, we can now impress upon the government to allocate more resources also towards these activities. And of course, we have also had support from the Kenya Private Sector Alliance towards this activity. Then the business model I will say that we have taken is what you will call value and resource recovery business model. And so what we are doing now is emphasize on establishing inclusive businesses. And the activity has been largely on formation and groups and organizing that groups into associations that take waste management as a business. We are also engaged in incubation and business setups, green businesses in the county. And as a county, we are heavily now involved in licensing of the groups that have been set up by our involvement and the involvement of other partners. Then we are also incentivizing the private collection companies to come in and support us on the collection bit. And we have received very, very impressive results that right now we have almost 10 companies that have now taken waste collection seriously. And then of course, we have created platforms that links the waste collectors and the recycling companies so that materials that are retrieved are actually sent to the market. And this also we have gotten a lot of support from these organizations that I have displayed there. And then material recovery, this, I think, this is the phase in which we are now. The government itself has allocated resources to develop 6 standard material recovery facilities across the county. And the one I have shown in the picture is the first one that we are launching in the next 1 month or so. But we also received support from the entities I have displayed there, who have allocated resources to develop almost 20 of such material recovery facilities across the county. But of course, also we have encouraged the private recycling companies to come on board. At the moment, we have 5 very, very active but mid-level players that have invested in recycling, 2 of them in the plastic waste and 1 of them in glass and metals. In terms of disposal operations improvement, in this financial year, we have secured funding to improve our collection fleet, but more importantly, to improve the dump site, to procurement of equipment, so that we can streamline the operations at our dump site. But also we have support to map up all the illegal dump site that we have in the county, and put in place measures to rehabilitate the ones that we have closed. And this has largely been the responsibility of the county government of Mombasa, with, of course, technical support from an organization called the Coastal and Marine Resource Development. So I will say that in terms of financing, so far, that is what we have unlocked. I will say we have started the process, but I'm seeing the bright future in investment in circular economy. And then finally, we have managed so far to rehabilitate, I would say, 2 dump sites, and our model has been to level the waste, compress and cover with the quarry and vegetation on top of them. And these pictures show one of our very old dump sites that had been existing for more than 50 years, that now has been turned into a green park. So I'll say this is our experience from Mombasa, and thank you very much.
Yes. Thank you, Dr. Neto. And it was really good learning from you how all the important stakeholders, government, private sector, informal workers have all have got a very important role to play in the entire process of waste management. And And given that Mombasa is a port city, it's all the more important to manage the waste that is being generated by this million-plus city towards contribution to a safe global environment. I move on to our last panelist today, Mr. Sigve Andera, who is managing the program Clean Oceans to Clean Communities since 2019. It's a program by Norway Waste and Recyclers Association. The CLOCC program is assisting municipalities to develop integrated sustainable waste management through trainings, inclusive planning process, and value chain development. Before joining AFOL, Norway, Mr. Andera has experience as a business advisor and board member in Norwegian SME, and has also worked many years in different countries and organizations within international cooperation. So thank you, Sigve, for your patience, and over to you.
Thank you so much, and thank you for the invitation, and also thank you to all the other presenters. It's been really interesting to follow. So yes, I'm Sigve Andera, and I'm managing a program called Clean Oceans Through Clean Communities from the Norway Waste and Recyclers Association. So in the interest of time, I will go skip some of the introductory slides, I think. But we are based in Norway, and we represent the entire waste and recyclers business in Norway, both private and municipal and public members. So this program was initiated in 2018. We cooperate closely with ISVA, the International Solid Waste Association, and we have funding from the Norwegian government for this program. And we started up in Indonesia, and we are also looking into expanding and supporting in other countries where there is a need, and for us to join, including India is very interesting for us to join in if there are opportunities. But so far we started in Indonesia. So when we focus, even if the focus from the grant we received from the government is very focused on reducing marine littering, but our approach is actually addressing the waste management on land with a complete systems approach. So we are not only focused on the marine litter, although that's the kind of where we are measured when it comes to the impact. So we have two main objectives. It's to improve to contribute to improved municipal solid waste collection and controlled management, and then also to have increased recycling of suitable materials. So working towards a circular economy and support municipalities, cities in that work. Those are our objectives. We have three work packages. So the first one is we contribute with trainings, of course, depending on need with our partners. So it will be tailored to the needs, but some places it's needed to increase knowledge, understanding of waste management in general, and technology, including technologies, but not only limited to the technologies, but the whole complex of waste management. We have a work package where we support the waste management planning, development of or revision or development of waste master plans. That's the part I'll probably talk most about. And then we have a third package to try to invite Norwegian technology, but not only Norwegian, but of course, since we are in Norway, and we have to invite the Norwegian companies to bring technology investments, try to assist in developing the circular value chains and the infrastructure that is needed to actually put the plans into motion and into action. So those are the three components of our program. And our approach is we are committed to an integrated sustainable waste management, ISWM, which has been developed over many years by many professionals. So it was first launched, I think, back in the 90s as a term. But the really important is that we look at both physical and governance aspects of the waste management. So we're not jumping into promoting technology but looking at the 6 aspects of integrated sustainable waste management. And the governance is actually just as important as the physical investments, as has also been underlined by other presenters today. And that's really at the core of our approach, and very important for us to underline that that we need to go through a quite thorough planning process. We use something, a 7-step participative planning process, and it's very important that it's really real participation and participative. So it starts from the yellow bubble and go to the right. So first, of course, we organize the process, identify the stakeholders, then we do the baseline. So what's been discussed a lot today, we are also using the UN Habitat Waste by Cities tool for data collection and baseline. From baseline, we have workshops to validate the baseline, but also then to discuss planning factors, which is kind of more overarching principles for the planning, and to get buy-in from all the stakeholders. And then starting developing the plan with scenarios from collection to end of pipe solutions. And then there is also a stakeholder meeting for discussion, validation of those scenarios and selection, and then start writing up the action plan and the waste management plan in close cooperation with the municipality, of course. And of course, that process should be owned and driven by the municipality itself. So it's more like we give support. We can provide some consultant and advisor support. We can do some mentoring through the process. We can put in some trainings where it's needed, but it should be owned by the municipality itself. These are examples from the baseline we have done in a project in Indonesia. I won't go too much into the data. It's already been presented from other projects. So it's more like the illustration of the importance of having good data. We see that in this case, actually only 22% of the waste is collected. So in this case, there's a huge challenge on the collection side. And to increase the recovery, only 6% of resources are recovered in this case. And equally important is actually to understand and to know the waste composition, so that solutions are designed according to the waste composition. And in this case, we see 65% in total is actually organic and biodegradable waste. And that, of course, has implications for how you would plan the system. In addition to applying the Waste by Cities tool data collection, we also done some surveys to understand a bit more about the system and the practices in the we call it the villages it's called villages in Indonesia. It's in Indian context, I think that's comparable to wards, but maybe with some more autonomy than a ward in India, if I understood it correctly, but more or less the same thing. So smaller areas, and they have different systems and different applications. So quite a few of them in this case don't have any formal waste collection system. Some have a very basic system, and only a few, 11%, are classified as a safe waste system. To do this classification, we had a survey with more than 60 questions about their system of how often do you have collection? How often do you have collection? Do you have segregated collection? Where is it taken? Do you pay any fees? How much do you pay? So many questions, and then a classification based on those questions into these categories. So that complements the waste data collection to get an even better and deeper understanding of the system. And also the common practices, and we see that open burning is a very common practice in this case. So, and the importance of understanding this is, of course, that the planning process must be based on real data, which has been also underlined by many others, and interesting to hear from Mombasa, for example, how that actually changed your plans. That was really interesting to hear. And of course, also if, as in this case, 78% of the waste is not collected, then the solution is not a huge investment in an incinerator before you fix the collection system. So it's about understanding these things before we go into the planning. But it's also about understanding the current system and practices, because when people throw waste in the wrong place, it's most often it is because they don't have access to the right place. So we cannot point fingers and make it into an individual system when the system is broken, and we need to understand where it's broken. But it's also, even if we can say that 78% they don't have a system, but of course there's always a system, it's just not a formal system. So there can also be good things and good practices in the existing informal system that can be built on and improved and enhanced into a formal system. So it's also about understanding those things. So that's why we think that participation is really instrumental to ensure that planning will work and that you get ownership and commitment to the plans when we go forward. So we don't rush into writing a plan, but we take the time it takes to involve a wide array of stakeholders into real participatory processes into the planning and defining the planning factors that are underpinning the plan before it becomes more technical role to actually write. Of course, we don't have a kind of a city hall all citizens joined in to get consensus on the details in the plan, but we strive to have consensus, or at least a good understanding and buy-in to the guiding principles and the planning factors of the plan, and then consultants and technicians and engineers are taking it forward into more detailed plans. And it needs, as I said, from collection to, or actually from generation to collection to final use, disposal, and affordability is we recognized all those gaps from the slide from the Alliance to End Plastic Waste. That's a really good illustration of it, and affordability is really a key challenge many places in low income areas. But we believe that through participation, it's a bigger chance to arrive at something that is both affordable and sustainable. But it's still challenging, of course. So just summing up that circular economy needs to match with local plans and priorities. And I think, unfortunately, too often international funded projects tend to sometimes come in with the solution or the technical solution before you actually do enough analysis. And I think we all need to work to turn that around and get donors and investors to be willing and patient enough to match up with local plans and trust that you need participatory planning and overall and holistic plans before you actually do select the technology and the investment plans. So that's maybe my most important message, that we try to get influence other actors and players to match up with local plans and priorities, and to support them rather than to come in with solutions first and try to get buy-in. Hopefully, I think it's become better than maybe used to be, but it can still be a challenge. Keep in mind when we do the planning that the two triangles of the integrated sustainable waste management, that governance issues are just as important as the physical issues. And then for participation, that we need top-down kind of master plan, strategic level planning, but they need to be matched with a bottom-up engagement and local ownership and acceptance to get the commitment for the integration. And this takes a bit of time and investment in good processes, but I think it's worth it. And as I said, we need to understand, like everyone has underlined, that we need to understand, we need good data and to understand the current situation before we actually design the solutions. So that's our project and our focus. And as I said, we are currently in Indonesia, but we hope to also join in other places and to be able to contribute into this approach in other cities. So thank you so much. That was what I had today.
Thank you so much, Sigve, and very important, presentation highlighting the whole process that needs to go into setting up a project. And you made a very important point of learning from the local context as well, which from Ms. Mishra's remark also, it was good to learn all the work that SBI mission has done, and it's time to start assessing the important lessons that we can derive from that. We are already over time, but we might have spend a few minutes, maybe 5 minutes, to take any questions that we may have from the audience. In the meantime, we have Mr. Samir Unhale, State Joint Commissioner, Municipal Administration of Maharashtra, who's joined us. Mr. Unhale, I'll be grateful if you can also shed some light from the perspective of the government Maharashtra on this topic.
Yeah, first of all, thank you very much for giving this opportunity to interact. I must extend my greetings for the Urban October, as the whole world community is going to celebrate the urban character of our planet. Having said this, I would like to once again compliment UN Habitat also for choosing a very pertinent topic on data, circular, and finance, because of environmental and pollution load that the cities are going to generate in next maybe decade are going to be so humongous that we will require an entire new rethinking, will require a new paradigm, new technology, new engagements, new practices, new behavior to tackle this issue of solid waste management in the cities, not only here in Maharashtra or India, but also all over the world. I would like to share 2-3 experiences that we did with the help of our local city governments as well as the state government of Maharashtra. One of that was a policy was mandated just 2 days back, where the use of data and data-driven solid waste management was mandated for all the cities and towns of Maharashtra. And the state government has also made a MOU with the public sector information, the Indian telephone industry, in which entire single data-driven dashboard-led approach will be used for capturing the data of solid waste management essentially into the 2 spheres of collection of the solid waste management as well as the public feedback on the community latrines as well as the street cleanliness. This framework, I believe, is going to be of good help because this activity was driven from the state level by our state mission director of the Swachh Bharat, which has an independent office, independent organizational structure that has been made. So this data, giving primacy to the data-driven solid waste management at a state level at one go for all the 400 cities and towns, I think is a good example which can be emulated in the other parts of India as well as world. Because to have an optimality of technology, of finance, and of local this initiative is always a difficult challenge to deal with, and we always require to find, search, and keep on adjusting to this optimality by which the best possible solution is available. Secondly, regarding data, right from the beginning of the Swachh Bharat mission, there has been an insistence on using data at a massive scale. In fact, the entire direct benefit transfers as well as the initial database that was generated of all the users did created an important thinking and an important philosophy of being data driven and evidence driven rather than pure hunches. So I think this was a very important paradigm shift which is being seen now in the cities of Maharashtra and also in other parts of India as well. And I think this is a very important step that we can see now on the ground. I think regarding data, one experience that I would like to share is essentially that the data needs to reach to the citizens. And the focus of citizens is extremely important. Most of governance, we do try to make the job of the officers and clerks easier. but that need not be the focus. This entire information of solid waste management has to reach, has to connect with the citizens, and therefore the citizens' participation and engagement is going to be a very important aspect all over the world as to how we are going to connect with the challenges of solid waste management. I'm sure that with technology, with citizen engagement, with community engagement, with partnership with the corporates, with the corporate partnership with multilaterals, partnership with UN family institutions.
Mr. Unhale, we seem to have lost you. Lost your connection.
I'm sorry, some network issue, but I think the gist of the question, the gist of the issue which I wanted to share here was that we require a new paradigm. Citizen engagement has to be prioritized, and technology, citizen engagement, and partnership, national, local, international, with academia, with media, would be an important step that we all should try. And the responsibility of urban world is immense as far as the climate actions and SDGs are concerned. And I'm sure the activities like the one taken by UN Habitat India would allow greater awareness of the world practices which are being done and greater possibility of implementation in world over. So thank you very much. It being the paucity of time, I think I stop here and once again extend my greetings for the Urban October. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Unhale, for sharing the perspective from Maharashtra state government. And I think one uniform theme that has been highlighted by all the panelists today has been the collective effort that needs to go into tackling this challenge. Segway pointed out about this top-down, bottom-up approach. We saw how that has been crucial in the implementation of projects in Mombasa, in the work that Francesca and Karthik shared, and also highlighted by Isha that they're looking for they're looking at the whole ecosystem and the collective impact that can be made in the space when they look at financing. So in the interest of time, I would like to thank all the panelists so much for taking your time out of your schedules. This is certainly one of the many such dialogues that we need to continue, and we'll continue to look forward for opportunities to do this. Before we leave, just one final poll for the attendees. Do you think this webinar has helped in increasing your awareness and understanding about circular economy and financing and municipal solid waste? And will the learnings shared help you to adopt these concepts? All right, so the consensus seems that we have made the shift in the right direction, and that the session has indeed increased awareness around this topic of data-driven circular economy and financing in MSW sector. And we look forward to continued engagement on platforms such as this. We will be sharing the highlights from the discussion today, and also the recording will be made available with everyone publicly. So thank you again for your time, and we will be continuing a series of dialogues throughout this month on various topics such as housing, urban environment, on cities and rivers. So please look out for for announcements on these dates through this month. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you and bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Yes, thank you very much to everybody.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.